Peace, wholeness, and divine blessings, everyone. I am Moon Goddess Ambrosia, the Fifth Force Oracle of Moon Goddess and the Healing Arts. I'm also a priestess initiate of the M.I.M.E priesthood and the course instructor for the Law of Time 100 within Synchronistic Human School of Enlightenment. And so I am here today on this plasma to share the collective cosmic oracle reading of evolution, which is known as the core readings that I offer. And I am so excited and thankful to be here and to share space with all of you alongside Mimic as a whole, High Priestess M.I.M.E.C, Baba Wanik, Neb and Brother Aqil, and as always, all of you, including the priesthood. And so much love and gratitude to High Priestess and Neb as well as Baba Wanik for setting the stage for us to utilize this cosmology in such a way that it helps us to evolve as divine frequency beings. And so shout out to everyone that may be tapping in from my YouTube. And so with that, let's go ahead and jump right on in to prepare ourselves for the oracle reading by getting into the mindset of a synchronaut. The mindset of a synchronaut states that I am, or we are, living expressions of divine synergy in motion, remembering our divine purpose to consciously create and fulfill our soul's mission in all spaces of time. And so before I talk more about that, well, actually, I'll talk about it now. The reason why we are tapping into this mindset of a synchronaut is because we are traveling the synchronicities. And so particularly during this heptad, we're actually closing out the blue heptad and moving into the yellow heptad. So I want to encourage us to really focus on what we're consciously creating in our day-to-day lives and doing it in such a way that we are creating things or our experiences that's in alignment with us fulfilling our soul's mission. And so to start getting into this frequency, I want to invite all of you to join me in stating your personal galactic signature. Um, and if you do not have your kin number, please let us know in the chat or reach out to us, any of us, so that you can receive your signature. And so what we're going to do, we're going to tap into, the fact that we are living expressions of our kinergy. So we're going to state as a living expression of, and then you're going to say your kin number, its name, and then your galactic signature. And so as you say it, allow yourself to truly ground in the words and resonate with each word. And also pay attention to anything that stands out for you, particularly when you're stating your affirmation, because this is you tapping into your divine intelligence that can be used as we get into this oracle reading. And so please join me as I state my affirmation. All right, let's go. As a living expression of Kin 181, the red crystal dragon, I dedicate in order to nurture, universalizing being. I seal the input of birth with the crystal tone of cooperation. I am guided by the power of space. Ashe, Ashe, and Ashe-yo. And so for me, in just stating mine, what really stood out was sealing the input of birth with the crystal tone of cooperation. So as the red dragon, I sit in the court of knowledge. The red dragon is the archetype that starts off the 260 kin. And so as the red dragon, my creative purpose is to nurture. So here I am, as always, and consciously setting that as my intention to create that nurturance that helps us to move forward in our evolution. And so I appreciate all of you for joining me in stating your personal signature, as this allows for us to unify our creative resonance, and, operate in collective harmony, So I got to shout out my brother Dragon, Ken 221, because he's been talking about how we all come back to one. We all come back to the primal force of who we are, and that resonates with our galactic signature. And so much love and gratitude. I'm ready to go ahead and move us forward. And so the Destiny Kin Oracle is based on the Oracle board, which provides us with a fifth dimensional template that helps us to sustain our cosmic synergy. So it helps us to align our emotions, our soul, our mental, our physical, as well as our spirit, to operate in that inner cooperation. And so when we operate with our own inner cooperation, that also helps us to cooperate with each other. And so that is part of my mission, is to build upon the cooperation on all levels for us. And so I love talking about the Destiny Oracle in this way. I'm thankful to have this as a meditative tool and a cosmic compass for myself. And so this is also how you can utilize the Destiny Oracle when it comes to you navigating through these synchronicities and our experiences on the regular basis or the day-to-day basis. And so let's take a closer look at the Oracle board to see where we are. And because we are on the Yellow Warrior, which is specifically Kin 136, the Yellow Rhythmic Warrior. The Yellow Warrior sits there down below where you get to, so if you look at on the left side, you get to see the basic template for all of the Yellow Warrior archetypes, which includes the Yellow Warrior in the soul body, the Red Serpent in the emotional body, the White World Bridger in the mental body, and then the Blue Knight in the physical body. And so that blank box up top represents the spirit guide position. So the archetype that sits there is based on the galactic tone of the archetype in the center. So with us being on the rhythmic tone, the Yellow Warrior also sits in the spirit guide position. And so generally that is what some of the information that we could get from looking at the Oracle board. So you can even identify where your archetype is on the Oracle board and be able to see which archetypes are also a part of your Destiny Oracle. And so I'm going to go ahead and move forward by looking a little bit closer at where we are in the wave spell and what the Yellow Rhythmic Warrior represents and do within this wave spell. So being that we are in the Blue Monkey wave spell, this is us using this as a tool to tap into the power of our magic. And our magic is our creative power. So our creative power corresponds to our galactic signature. And so through this power of magic, we get to play with illusions. We get to play with our imaginations. We get to play with transforming the illusions that we are perceiving in our experience. And so we're doing that so that we can intuitively dream of divine abundance. So, for example, say that there's an illusion of I don't, I'm gonna just go in. Say there's an illusion that you're riding in a hoopty or something, right? And so, sometimes that illusion can make us feel like, we're gonna, it's gonna be a hard time for us to get a new car and things like that. So we get to play with our imaginations and transform those illusions by dreaming. allowing our intuition to show us the divine abundance. So like, say that, you riding in a hoopty, but your dream is to have a vehicle, with different, whatever qualities that you need. It doesn't mean like you got to have like, I don't know, a Mercedes Benz or anything like that. But, if that is a part of your dream, then so be it, right? So if you could dream it, you can create it. And so we can use the power of our galactic signature to create this divine abundance. And so, with us being on the yellow rhythmic warrior, this archetype is, or all of the 13 kin in this wave spell helps us to, work with where we are towards creating that abundance that we are seeking, right? And so the yellow rhythmic warrior, when we look at the significance of each part of its name, the yellow is where we tap into our power to ripen the fruit. And this is us, just really using our creative power to create things, or to create what's going to move us towards fulfilling our mission. And so when we jump down to the archetype, which is, or the solar seal is the yellow warrior, but the archetype for the warrior is the pathfinder. And this is the power of divine intelligence that questions fearlessness. So in order to ripen the fruit, we got to ask some questions. We got to tap into the power of our divine intelligence and also be fearless about it. So like, again, going back to the car situation, say that, there's some fear, usually, I'm gonna be honest, usually a lot of this fear comes from living in survival mode, or some type of ego related things, thoughts and perceptions that we're holding on to. So when we allow ourselves to operate in that fearlessness, to go beyond the survival mode and the ego, that helps us to channel the power of our divine intelligence. And so that's the creative power that's helping us to ripen the fruits. Now, when we look at the galactic tone, we are on the rhythmic tone. And this is the vibration, like the movement of the energy, where it's focusing on organizing equality to bring balance. And so with this organizing the equality, it's like, just getting organized and looking at both sides of the picture. So like, being realistic and real honest and transparent with yourself about your current situation and what you're aspiring towards, the abundance that you're aspiring towards, and looking at how you could bring balance to get over it. And so I also connect the rhythmic tone with the world bridger, and because when we're equalizing something, it's to say we're getting from point A to point B. So if it's balanced, it's a lot smoother for us to make our way over to the other side of it. So we do have to bring some equality and get organized to help shift things into our benefit. And so when we look at the remixed version of the signature for the Yellow Warrior, it states that I'm going to say you organize your magic in order to question. So that part about organizing your magic is getting organized with your creative power. And so when we organize ourselves internally first, everything starts within first. When we get organized within ourselves, like, energetically and mentally, even physically, on all of the levels of, our destiny oracle, this helps us to get organized with our magic. And so that puts us in a position to now ask questions about the abundance that we are creating or seeking to create. And so we do that by bringing balance to the fearlessness. So by us asking the questions, that's how we can become more fearless, because a lot of the time we fear things because we don't have enough information. We don't know enough to not be fearless. So this is a beautiful power of the yellow warrior that we're in, to bring balance to that, so we can see how to actually get to the other side of, to the abundance. And so it then states that you seal your express output of divine intelligence with the rhythmic tone of equality. So it's using your divine intelligence to look at both sides of the coin. And then it closes out by, we are guided by, or you are guided by your own power of intelligence doubled. So by you focusing on, you know, uh, being more fearless and directing it towards, asking questions, using your divine intelligence to ask questions, or um, asking the divine intelligence questions, that's what's going to take things to new heights for us. And so, by bringing balance to that fearlessness, we also come to know the path that we're meant to take, or that we're being called to take, that's going to help us to get there. And so, it's so interesting because before I get into the oracle reading, a few thoughts that had came to mind as I was preparing for this, which was, if we know we are divine reflections of the the divine creator, the most high, or of our higher selves, then why is it such a challenge to operate as divine frequency beings? And, when I asked that question, what came back was because of ego and living in survival mode. It reminds me of that Bobby Hemmick quote when he said, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. It's when, from my understanding or my perspective of what he's talking about is, when it comes to the dying part, that's, I'm thinking of like letting go of things that do not serve us, or letting go of the things that keep us operating in that survival mode, or giving too much into our ego. And so a lot of the time that's what's blocking us from recognizing how to actually get to the abundance. So yeah, I just thought that was an interesting insight to receive, which is perfect for us now getting into the oracle for this plasma. And so, another, look, this whole day is about asking questions. Okay. So I got a lot of questions to ask. So another question that came to mind for us was, what is divine intelligence? From my perspective, I see divine intelligence like our higher self, or our divine self, or, the most high God, um, Yahweh, or however you want to call the divine creator of all living beings and all of that is. Being able to um, lock into that intelligence is something that's we're focusing on today. And so, yeah, yeah, go ahead and explore that question yourself as well. Like, identify for yourself, what does divine intelligence mean for you? Because that'll also help you to lock in on the focus, the kin that we're focusing on this plasma. All right, so the central frequency that we're tapping into is that of the rhythmic tone, which is all about organizing the equality to bring balance. So I like to refer to the questions that correlates to each of the moons. So like for the rhythmic moon, the question that it asks is, how can I extend my equality to others? So this is one of those questions that I had to sit with myself personally to understand. And so from my perspective, it's saying, okay, when we create that equality within ourselves, how can we share that with others? Or how can we use that to connect with others? How can we be or create that equality with others as well? So that also opens the door for us to start getting into the mindset of how to cooperate within ourselves and with each other. And so we want to focus on the frequency of creating balance. So in the center, we talked about what the yellow warrior is. And so we are being guided also by the same energy of the yellow rhythmic warrior. So the soul body is giving us something, telling us how to direct our focus. And so the spirit guide above is like the GPS, is now showing us how to direct our focus, or what direction we want to go in our focus. So we want to, since we're focusing on bringing balance to the fearlessness, we want to direct it towards asking some divine questions, or asking divinely intelligent questions. Yeah, I'm not going to keep finding different ways to say it, but we want to ask questions to that divine intelligence that um, that we are that we understand that to be. And so that's the direction we want to go today in our focus. And so now we're going to jump down to the emotional body, where we have the red galactic serpent. Now, the red galactic serpent is about operating in thriving mode, connecting with our life force energy to model having trust in our instincts. And so, what's important about, or how this connects to what we're focusing on today, it goes back to, again, us questioning our fearlessness, question it in a ways where we are trusting what our instincts is showing us about how to actually thrive towards what we aspire to experience. And so, in order for us to thrive in that way, we got to also operate with a calm nervous system, again, not being in survival mode. So I'm pretty sure everybody or everyone desires to thrive in life, right? So, the challenge in this, or I'll say this now brings us to the challenge which sits in the mental body. And excuse the color. Uh, this should be a white color background behind it, but it's okay. All right. So this brings us to our. Oh, wait. One thing I want to say about the galactic serpent, modeling instinct, that goes back to operating with a calm nervous system, modeling what it's like to be in thriving mode. So keep that in mind as well. When we ask questions like, how can I operate in thriving mode, or in what ways am I basically you want to look at both sides of the coin. How are you still operating in survival mode compared to you operating in thriving mode? Because that's going to show you how to bring balance to you internally, to again operate with a calm nervous system. So um yep. And then now I'll bring balance to, again, um you operating with more fearlessness, trusting your instincts more. And so going to the mental body on the left, that should also say 3 in the corner, so just disregard that. The mental body is the challenges that we face. That's actually a gift, because it's strengthening our ability to focus. So, uh, what I was saying, or was beginning to say, is that the challenge is in our ability to thrive by allowing our ego to die, or um, okay, so I'm going to explain the ego death in just 1 second. But allowing that ego death to occur so that our soul is operating in alignment with our spirit, because that's how we can actually open ourselves up to divine intelligence, because we're not allowing our ego, or being in that survival mode, to interfere with us getting that clarity. And so what I wanted to say about the ego death is, again, letting go of the things that keep us in survival mode. From my perspective, I don't think that ego is all bad. I see ego as having two sides to the coin. We have like the immature ego, and then we have, the immature ego does the stuff that it's basically like the things that we do that pulls us away from being in divine alignment with the creator or our higher self. And then we also have or our ego could be operating from the mature ego, where it's actually serving us in operating in that divine alignment. So the challenge is to recognize the difference between us operating from a immature ego, or if we're doing it from maturity. So like I look at so one way to look at this energy, being that the warrior is known as the pathfinder, we could use the analogy of uh, say we have a destination that we want to meet, right? So that's the goal, is to reach the destination. Now we sometimes we gotta trust our instincts to know which way to go. So that's where the red serpent comes in at. Trusting that we are moving in thriving mode and not operating in survival mode, because you know operating in that survival mode can cause, like, some undesirable things to happen while you're on your journey. So when we focus on thriving, that opens us up to being more intentional about what we are actually creating. So then if we connect this analogy to the world bridger, that's bringing balance to the opportunity. So when we let go of the fear, we're now more fearless to go towards the destination. So it's just like, if say you want to go somewhere, but you're afraid to drive the car, like how you going to get there if you're afraid to drive? Or, you know what I'm saying? So we got to put to death that fear and open ourselves up to being more fearless. We got to get in the car. We got to take that, we got to take on the challenge so that we can reach the gift, which is that divine abundance source to end. And so what's even more dope about that is when we look at the physical body, this is the blue knight, and it talks about divine abundance. So the blue rhythmic knight sits in the physical body position, where it supports us in the focus internally and externally. So when we are focusing on the path to take, while staying grounded, with our calm nervous system, recognizing, how to allow ourselves to move towards the opportunity without being fearful. That's what's going to support us in reaching the dreams or that divine abundance that we are intending to create for ourselves. And so I think of this blue rhythmic night as the aspirations. The red serpent is us operating in thriving mode, and the white world bridger is the ego death, letting go of those things. So essentially, when we put all of this together, as we focus on this plasma, it's actually going to help us to bring balance to the opportunities. We're going to be more fearless. We have more clarity how to bring that equalization to where we are now and where we see ourselves heading. And this organizes the divine purpose of what we're nurturing as our experience, or how we are nurturing us operating in our creative power, because that's the whole point. We were born to be creators. And so going through this process helps us to endure the journey by being fully aware, or operating in that wakefulness when we're exploring different spaces that's going to bring forth the clarity for the path that we are meant to take. And so with that, that concludes the oracle reading for us on this plasma. And so I definitely want to just thank you all for tapping into the session, aligning with the cycles, and listening to the core reading. And feel free to reach out to me to receive your galactic profile charts. If you have some questions about that, just reach out to me and I'll break it down to you and let you know what's all included in that in that galactic profile chart reading. And so with all of that, may that you got some good gems, may that you continue to get good gems. I trust that you already got your notebooks out. So much love and gratitude to all of you. I shall talk to you on the next session. In Lakesh Alakin, may that you enjoy your creation in every single moment of now. We're focusing on consciously creating our experiences so that we can fulfill our soul's mission. And so I love y'all. Stay peace.